Right now, though, I want to welcome to the program from Rick's Firearm Academy of Detroit, Mr. Rick Ector. Rick, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Cam, I'm doing great, man. Trying to do my best to stay warm and dry. We got hit with a little bit of snow last night, but we're willing and dealing.
Well, listen, man, I'm glad that you're all right, and I'm glad that that great-grandmother in Detroit is okay, too. And I'm also glad that she had a gun, Rick.
I'm glad she had a gun. I'm glad she had a concealed pistol license. You know, one of the unfortunate things about the incident was that despite the fact that she was on a crowded bus full of men, not one of these guys was willing to step up and help this lady who was obviously under duress. I mean, you got a bad guy that's fighting with her physically and assaulting her while trying to commit a robbery.
Yeah, no, you're right. And this is, look, this isn't something that is particular to Detroit. I think we're seeing this far too often where people watch, even as events unfold feet away, they don't want to get involved. Maybe they feel like they can't get involved, but for whatever reason, they stand by while somebody is, the victim of a crime. And in this case, thank goodness, this woman in Detroit was able to help herself because nobody came to her aid.
And, she fits a couple of target groups that these bad guys are looking for. I mean, she's a senior citizen. She's a great-grandmother, and she's a woman. So, bad guys, they look for vulnerable targets, and she hit two of the typical profiles. And even though it was on a crowded bus, they attacked her anyway. And thank God she had a gun. It was lawfully carried. She had a concealed pistol license, and she defended herself. And, we're just waiting to see what happens. She discharged it several times. We're waiting to see if a bad guy turns up in the hospital with a bullet wound or two, and, as far as I'm concerned, it's a good outcome. There was a victim or a would-be victim who was able to defend herself. She's still here. And even in the report that came out, she said that some time ago she had misgivings about guns, but then she had a change of heart, and luckily for her, she started carrying one.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And I always ask you this question when we have you on. After an armed citizen story like this, I mean, what's your phone been doing at Rick's Firearm Academy this morning, Rick? Has it been ringing?
When the story first broke, this late last week, man, it's been a definite noticeable uptick because when you see someone do something, it just encourages other people that they themselves can do exactly the same thing. And particularly with women being the selected demographic by the bad guys, more and more women are doing it, and I definitely applaud their willingness and their pluck to take the required steps to own their responsibility for their safety.
Well, yeah, absolutely right. And particularly in a case, and Detroit has its own unique problems. I mean, we've talked about, what the mayor's plan is for the city, and that's basically to shut off city services to a lot of neighborhoods that are underpopulated and try to drive people into neighborhoods that are already semi-populated, let's say. The problem with that, Rick, I mean, as I've been thinking about this, what do you do if you live in one of these neighborhoods that 10 years ago, 15 years ago was if not vibrant, it was at least it had some people in it. And now, you may be one of the only ones left on the block. How do you get out? You can't sell your house.
Some people are unfortunately in a situation in which they're upside down and they can't move. They don't have the not that I'm necessarily advocating that people desert the city in droves. I mean, the city is going to come back. It's just a question of when. But in the meantime, we've cut public services, resources to the bone, police and fire, and we might even cut them even further if we get a state emergency financial manager installed and they decide to cut services even more, which, is beyond belief, but it's definitely possible. But if you're determined to stay here in the city of Detroit, it is incumbent upon you to make some active plan that you can use other than calling 911. And, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but the state of, affairs here, 411 homicides last year and better than 2 rapes per day, particularly for our seniors and women, they need to take on a more active role in their protection.
Well, yeah, I think that, I think you're right, and I hope that people understand that that's the case. I don't know if you heard the comments of the sheriff in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who's running a new PSA that basically says just that.
Well, and I definitely applaud them because, historically, local communities with regards to law enforcement, their whole idea is that citizens taking on a more active role is adding to the problem, and it's very refreshing to see, some members of the law enforcement community taking the opposite viewpoint, that they recognize that they can't be everywhere and that until they can get there, they're advocating for citizens to be lawful and responsible and get a gun and learn how to use it and protect themselves until they can get there. I applaud that.
Absolutely. Listen, Rick, glad you can be with us on the program, sir, and I know we'll be talking to you again before long.
Well, fortunately for us here in Detroit in the great state of Michigan, we have concealed pistol licenses under a shall-issue process. And even though things are trying, at least it's not as bad as other communities that are beset by crime and they can't get a means to protect themselves. So, we're down, but I'm glad that people can defend themselves.
Yeah, absolutely right. Listen, Rick, thanks again for your time, man, and we'll talk again very soon.
Hey, man, thank you for having me, and tell Mr. Gray and Mr. Pop I said thank you.